Greetings and welcome to Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation. To our members, friends, and everyone joining us in our virtual congregation on YouTube today.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Robin Landerman Zucker, minister of this congregation, and I will be hosting our virtual recorded worship today, October 11th, 2020, with Worship Associate Pia Driessen-Knittle and music from Roomie Wood, Rebecca Prizznick, the Bill Staines classic River from the Mystic Chorale, and a chant from the Chippewa tradition. My sermon today is entitled, We've Known Rivers on the Constancy of Change. We still have sanctuary care packages for our members and friends that include objects to bring you closer to our virtual worship services, and so you can participate in our weekly rituals. These include a little chalice, a hope stone, and a card with our mission and covenant, and a little piece of chocolate to remind you of the sweetness of our community. We'd like to get those out to you as soon as possible, and we'd also love for you to come pick yours up. They're in the lobby at Beacon, and you can pick them up on Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 to 2. We're glad that you have made Beacon part of your day. Our congregation is spiritually open and intentionally inclusive. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are always welcome here. Our members and friends bring many interests, theologies, and viewpoints to our door. Here we trust you will find a common desire for meaningful community and spiritual growth and relevant religious exploration in a framework with very, very flexible borders. Membership in this congregation is open to anyone who chooses to walk with us in the spirit of love, the search for truth, and the pursuit of justice. As I light the chalice, the symbol of our free faith, I invite you to light a chalice or a candle at home and join me in the response words you will see on your screen. We light this chalice with a flame that draws us together. With this flame, we cut through the darkness of isolation and are warmed by the fires of our inner connection. The mission and covenant of Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation express our values and our vision of ourselves as a gathered community in the world. Please join me in the mission and covenant. You will see the words on your screen. The mission of Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation is to be a welcoming community that embraces diverse thought and belief and builds a just, peaceful, and compassionate world. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in kindness. Thus do we covenant. And now Pia has some opening words for us, a poem by Langston Hughes.
Our opening words are by Langston Hughes. The original title is The Negro Speaks of Rivers. The title today, I've Known Rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
Please join me in singing There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind.
This is the time in our service when congregants are invited to share personal joys and sorrows in the supportive fellowship of this community. Each week we take stones and we place them in the water we collected during our water communion in September, symbolizing that just as the stone creates ripples in the water, what affects one of us affects all of us. So I'll put in the first stone for some folks in the community who are having their joys and sorrows. One for Andy, who recently broke his elbow and is recovering well, actually. For Skip, who continues to heal up in Maine. We miss you, Skip, and we hope things are going well for you and Andrea. Our condolences to Barry, who recently lost someone close to him. This is for you, Barry. And for Nancy and Dick, who recently had a new family member born into their extended family. This is for you. It's always a sign of such hope when children are born. And then there are those joys and sorrows which we share with so many other people right now. All of the natural disasters and circumstances of climate change, wildfires, hurricanes, and other occurrences, storms. We're there with you. We hope things can be rebuilt and that we can address some of the underlying reasons for these climate crises occurrences. For all of us across the world who continue to cope with the coronavirus and all of the changes and circumstances it has wrought, whether it's death, illness, loss of jobs, financial pressure, having to homeschool children. There are a lot of things happening in the world right now because of the virus. Let's send our love and care to everyone in our sphere and outside our sphere, that we will pull through this together. For all of us in this country who are feeling the pressure of this election cycle as we approach November 3rd, let's remember to breathe. Let's remember to show solidarity, and let's absolutely vote, whether it's by mail or in person. Our vote matters this year more than ever. It's for all of us holding together through the election and beyond. For all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken because they are either too tender or too private to share, Let us remember that everyone is fighting their own private battle. We know not what it is, but because we're human, we know it to be true. So let us be kind, compassionate, flexible, and forgiving with one another. I invite you now to come into that quiet place with me where we'll do some intentional breathing. Today we'll also be breathing our way through a beautiful Chippewa chant about the river, which is the theme of our service today. So first, let's start as we usually do with you uncrossing your arms and legs and putting your feet on the floor, putting down whatever you might be holding, and just breathe. Breathe in 4 beats through your nose slowly and 5 or 6 beats out through your mouth in a steady stream, seeing if you can relax yourself, starting at the crown of your head, all the way down to the soles of your feet. Feel like there's a little string kind of holding you up to create a clear channel for your breath. So close your eyes and we'll breathe. 4 in, 5 or 6 out. Breathe and allow. Bring your awareness to where you can bring spaciousness in your body through your breath. Where do you need it the most? Do you need it in the crown of your head and your face, your shoulders, your chest, your body, your hands? Where can you breathe spaciousness into yourself? Considering your breath is like a stone dropped into a river, creating ripples, creating flow. Stop and feel, breathe, and allow. Keep your pattern of breathing as we listen to the chant, "The river is flowing."
Flowing and growing, the river is flowing.
Our reading today is called Run, River, Run by Wendell Berry. There is a river that runs through us. It is mystery, it is life. It descends through my granite soul with the force of gravity and love, plunges through empty canyons, chisels out corridors with its wet hands, and slowly, ever so, widens the cracks of crevices of my failures into pools where grace collects. The injury of the river is also its gift. Where I have been cut deeply, so their life most deeply, most surely flows. If we would receive the sacred, we must receive the river's flow, even as it injures, even as it takes away. That to me is Thanksgiving. It's not about being glad for the good things that have happened to us. They are simply moments in the sun. Thanksgiving is standing still with an injured and open heart and letting the river run freely through us. Each year at this time, I stop and cast into the water. I recount the story of the year past, of life given and taken away, our planet's staggering losses, our moments of forgiveness, our wonderment, our fulgent gains. I think of a friend's child who came swimming into this world on amniotic rivers. And I remember my grandmother's final crossing over the other shore. I remember the intense hope of eyes brimming with the vows of marriage and the loosening tears of those whose hope was broken. I think of my own love found, of friends lost. We are what we are given and what is taken away. The confluence of all things return to the sea, the source. The gift unites with the giver. Let the river run. The banks of my heart are wide with thanks.
I was born in the path of the winter wind, raised where the mountains are old. Their springtime waters came dancing down. I remember the tales they told. The whistling waves of my younger days too quickly had faded on by, but all the memories linger on like the light in the fading sky. River, take me along in your sunshine, sing me a song ever moving and winding and free. You rolling old river, you changing old river, let you and me river run down to the sea. Well, I've been to the city, and I've been back again, and I've been moved by some things that I have learned. Met a lot of good people, and I've called them friends. Felt the change when the seasons turn. I've heard all the songs that the children sing, and I've listened to love's melody. I felt my own music within me rise, like the wind in the autumn tree. River, take me along in your sunshine, sing me a song ever moving and winding and free. You rolling old river, you changing old river, let you and me river run down to the sea. Someday when the grass is still green, my rolling waters will round the bend and flow into the open sea. So here's to the rainbow that's followed me here, and here's to the friends that I know, and here's to the song that's within me now. I will sing it wherever I go. River, take me along in your sunshine, sing me a song ever moving and winding and free. You rolling old river, you changing old river, let's you and me river run down to the sea.
My sermon today is entitled, We've Known Rivers, on the Constancy of Change. When everything else is gone from my brain, writes Annie Dillard in the preface to her memoir, An American Childhood. When everything else is gone from my brain, what will be left, I believe, is topography, the dreaming memory of land as it lay this way or that. Dillard is talking about Pittsburgh, a hometown that she and I share, and in her memories of topography, Dillard especially recalls the three wide rivers that divide and cool the mountains. The Allegheny brawling in from the north, the Monongahela flowing in shallow and slow from the south, and then the two merging into the great westward wending Ohio. It surprises me not one bit that Dillard would choose to begin her memoir with a tribute to Pittsburgh's three rivers, because like her, those rivers symbolize for me a deep sense of place and a personal source from which flows my own adolescence, friends found, lost love, college, family divisions, the tragic loss of loved ones, and rediscovery later in my life of a place I thought I knew, but that became new to me. Until my return to Pittsburgh in 2011, after many years in Boston, I had never stepped foot in any of those polluted but majestic three rivers. Yet they've run through me with a force of gravity and love and joy and sorrow for decades. I am from Pittsburgh, and I've known rivers. As karma, or dumb luck, would have it, synchronicity, I resided for nearly 20 years in a town where two rivers, the Assabet and the Sudbury, also merged into a third river, the Concord. It is Thoreau country, a gentler place than Pittsburgh, though never as deeply embedded into my heart or soul as my childhood home. Even so, those three New England rivers, unpolluted and pastoral, ran under and through my life, carrying their own burgeoning memories and potent forces, marriage, motherhood, ministry, divorce. I lived once in Concord, Massachusetts, and I've known rivers. We were reminded earlier in the reading that Pia offered us by Wendell Berry, how the writer Norman Maclean wades into the swift silver of the big Blackfoot River, casting for memories with the same reverence that he reserves for trout, and how Norman begins to hear the long story of his life, cascading past gentle banks, through dark eddies and roaring rapids, and then finally concluded, eventually everything merges into one, and a river runs through it. Norman Maclean has known rivers. Wendell Berry has known rivers. We have known rivers. To be sure, each of us has known rivers of one sort or another, real and metaphorical. The Hudson, the Pinette, the Danube, the Verde, the mighty Mississippi, the Charles, the Rum, the Thames, the Saco, the Colorado, the St. Croix, the Sudbury, the Columbia, the Mackenzie, the wild Youghiogheny. We each wade thigh deep into the swift silver of memories, and we've each known changes and challenges. Some are sudden and abrupt, others planned, some welcome, and others truly dreaded. There have been changes that have carried us around river bends, into uncharted tributaries, and some currents have mostly floated us safely along, while others have swamped the very craft we had trusted to be buoyant and sturdy. A sage once remarked, "You can never step into the same river twice," meaning that life, like a river, is ever-changing and forever flowing downstream from its source. Let us pause silently and consider for a moment. Since March, when we went virtual because of the pandemic, what have been the changes and challenges in your life? What does your river look like and feel like right now for you? We'll be silent together. From my vantage point, I'm looking out from this riverbank virtual pulpit, and I see your faces all around the screen of my laptop while I record. And I'm looking out at a beloved congregation of people navigating the currents of change and stepping into a new river each and every day. Marriage and divorce, good health and illness, birth and death, employment shifts. I see newer friends whom we just welcomed here this past year, and those moving off to college, to retirement communities, to nursing homes, to some other shore. There are those grappling with the challenges of adolescence and parenthood, and those with the challenges of old age, those who are getting their driver's licenses, and those who are giving them up. We are all grappling with COVID and what it has wrought. Yes, here at Beacon, we are a community that has known its share of rivers, and together we face and will continue to face the changes and challenges that inevitably run through us and under us on this great river called life. As I see it, we aren't meant to go it alone on that river as a random assembly of single scullers. The congregation is, if nothing else, a place where we pledge to paddle together through the flats, the dark eddies, and the sudden white water. What I've observed since March is that the pandemic, this sudden and abrupt curve in the river, has recommitted us to building a big boat and rowing it together. The truth is, though, some of us are better at challenge and change than others, more comfortable with the unpredictable ways of the river. There are those among us who might even embrace change and look forward to it with relish. I don't know too many people like that, but that's okay, and it's admirable. In the past, I would have strenuously resisted facing any uneasy leave-taking or transition. But after many decades of dark eddies and gentle flats, triumphs and reversals, entries and exits, I've made an important discovery. And this is it. Just like a river, the only true constant in our life is change. I believe that's what Norman MacLean is getting at when he wrote, "Eventually all things merge into one, and a river runs through it." The one is the eternal, the Tao, and the river is constant change that runs through our lives. I'm reminded here of the great Hindu poet Rabindranath Tagore, who writes, "The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances its rhythmic measures. Is it beyond thee to be glad with the gladness of this rhythm, to be tossed and lost and broken in the whirl of this fearful joy? All things rush on, they stop not, they look not behind. No power can hold them back. They rush on like a river." Underneath all the apparent surface differences in our lives rushes on this steady as she goes, utterly dependable state that we call change. We can count on it, yet it is helpful, even reassuring, to recognize that although things can change for the better or the worse, change in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It just is. It's how we face and endure change that determines whether it becomes a crisis or an opportunity. My colleague Ken Hurdo likes to quip that nobody likes change but a wet baby. All of us have probably experienced a time when we were swamped, maybe even immobilized by some unexpected or devastating or terrifying challenge or change in our lives. Some folks, though, they stubbornly deny change, clinging to the sides of their boats even after they've flipped over or run aground. Others simply don't or won't see it coming. And this brings to mind that scene from countless buddy movies in which the hapless heroes find themselves adrift on some unfamiliar river. And as this rumbling sound grows louder and louder in the background, one turns to another and says, "Do you hear that?" And you know what comes next. The camera zooms out to show them approaching a waterfall the size of Niagara. Yes, change can feel like that at times, although this is probably not the best strategy for dealing with it. For some of us, floating peacefully on our backs through change is the preferred course, face to the sky, letting go, letting things be, remaining immersed in the moment, glad with the gladness of the rhythm of it all, or something like that. It sounds glorious, doesn't it? With something like this in mind, Mary Oliver wrote these words in her poem In Blackwater Woods. Every year, she writes, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, Oliver continues, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. There is such a real serenity and deep faith to Oliver's approach, but it's difficult. Letting go can free us, but it can also trigger intense feelings of loss, while thrusting us into what one writer calls the confusing nowhere of in-betweenness. Even so, we can benefit from this letting go approach in change or transitions, dropping our full weight into the seat of the present moment and paddling from there. Faced with change, still others prefer to launch themselves full throttle into the headwaters and take control, or at least the illusion of control, as they put the ash to her, as they say, like mad to stay the course. I sort of picture management guru Stephen Covey in a neon orange life vest. In one of his sermons, my colleague, the Reverend Scott Alexander, suggests that the key to surviving life's river of constant change, regardless of one's technique, is mostly a matter of resilience. This begins, Alexander tells us, with his typical directness. When we first make room for the notion that bad things can happen to good people, that life events can indeed be cruel and unfair. I take it as a matter of faith, he writes, that when life sends us reeling, and it will, all of us are free to make certain choices that can help us avoid falling into those permanently brittle places of mind, body, and heart that trap us in those rigid, angry places of isolation, fear, and despair. If we are saved by degrees in our living, and I believe we are, he writes, then it matters one whole lot whether we strive to bring, by our spiritual attitudes and emotional choices, the greatest possible measure of resilience, grace, vitality, and flexibility in our lives. I think our bird gal, Annie Dillard, would concur and would likely add these thoughts. It is madness, she has written, to wear ladies' straw hats and velvet fedoras to church. We should all be wearing crash helmets. Ushers should issue us life preservers and signal flares. They should lash us to the pews. I love Dillard's words. They remind me of my first bracing whitewater excursion in my 20s down the teeming Colorado River. On the rafting trip, the advice was puzzling. After the life preservers and helmets were strapped on, the tanned, muscular guide answered some questions, my favorite being, will I get wet? Then he ran down the rules for riding the rapids, explaining that when we encounter rocks and boulders, we should all lean into them. Oh, and keep paddling, please. Okay, did I hear that right? Did he say lean into the rocks? The guide emphasized this point several times, knowing that our natural instinct prompts us to lean away from the rock to avoid hitting it. That's what most people would do on reflex. But in whitewater rafting, as in life, you have to learn to override this natural instinct and force yourself to lean into the rocks instead. But if you lean away from the rock, the rushing river water can catch the side of the raft and cause it to get stuck against the rocks, or worse, flip it over. And by the way, yes, you will get wet. But if you lean into the rock, the rushing water hits the bottom of the raft and easily pushes you forward. Leaning into the rock is so counterintuitive for most people, just like leaning into change or leaning into things that are difficult for us. Even when you know you're supposed to do this, it still takes practice to override our instincts of fear or avoidance. Our fear can serve a purpose. We sense a threat. Adrenaline rushes through our bodies, bringing blood to our muscles. We can physically respond with speed and strength. Our primitive instincts protect us by saying, be afraid, be very afraid. Yet even with our hearts in our throat, leaning into the rocks enable us to lean into change and challenge, to lean into the reality of COVID and how it has changed our lives so drastically, to lean into the truth about the world we inhabit, our place in it, what we can do to change it. Lean into our deepest regrets, the whitewater of relationships, parenting, careers, politics, and society. I'm remembering now the words to a gospel song I sang with Nick Page's Mystic Chorale, the group you heard sing Bill Staines' River just now before the sermon. This was many years ago, but singing it with Nick Page was a transforming experience. But the words in the song for this gospel concert we did were, when everything else fails, I can go to the rock. Now the rock in this case was Jesus. And we don't sing songs like that in most of our UU congregations, but we do have sources of spiritual strength, moral meaning, and sacred refuge. And we should lean into those rocks more than ever. We should lean into our principles more than ever, the ones that were highlighted and affirmed in last week's service. Doing this in our congregations also empowers us to lean into the truth about simmering or erupting conflicts among us, lean into our budget, our longing for broader justice, deeper connection, or a sense of the sacred. This is where Dillard's seemingly silly advice makes good sense. Crash helmets, life preservers, and pew straps for churches and fellowships. Strapping yourself in to our covenantal community is not a genteel canoe ride on Pleasant Pond. It is a rafting trip on the Colorado, where the hard rocks of truth we seek and those we find dot the whitewater landscape and beg us, no, require us to lean in and experience how truth feels, how suffering and joy feels, how we each feel across the aisle, the street, through the Zoom screen, across the planet, how change feels, and develop grit and grace. Yes, you will get wet, but stay in the Beacon boat during this unexpected pandemic rafting trip. Row with us down the river to a far shore. We will be together again. In the words of UU poet Barbara Rohde, when I am swept by the cold fury of these waters, I praise the rock, I praise the river. I must know with my whole being how truth feels. I shall remember how truth feels. Scott Alexander reminds us that much of our capacity for resilience in facing challenge and change is in the end a matter of attitude and a matter of faith. A decision to affirm, even if the boat capsizes, what of value, joy, and holiness still remains with us. What blessings still bless us, even as we struggle through the ebb and flow of darkness into light and back again. I think the key is to launch our boats onto the river and to live grateful not just for the moments in the sun, but also with a willingness to stand still with an injured and open heart, letting the river run freely through us. It is with this sense of gratitude and hope that we might each set off on the next leg of our unique river journeys. And also perhaps with a fuller recognition that we've known rivers of change in our lives and our time together as a community, and that our souls have grown ever deeper, like those rivers, in facing and grappling with some of life's endless challenges. As we face transitions and traumas, entries and exits, and strive to sustain our virtual community, let it be with that bittersweet awareness that we've known rivers and that you can never step into a particular river of experience or relationship twice. We must step in where we are. And yet, may we carry the comforting assurance that one thing is certain: the river flows on, and there will surely be a time further downstream where an unexplored fork offers the chance for fresh choices, new awareness, deeper commitments, forgiveness, a change of course, holding hands again in our sanctuary. So let the river run, and may the banks of our hearts be wide open with thanks. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen.
Please join me in singing, I Know I Can. Though days be dark with storms, and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait on return, I know I can go on. My sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong. Though troubles fade and return, I know I can go on. And though the journey is near, and destination is near, the troubles fade and return, I know I can go on.
The spirit of generosity and gratitude flows through Beacon. Each week, we take an offering to support Beacon and our community partners. We're so grateful for any donation you can make, especially at this challenging time. You can donate two ways. You can go to our website, beaconuu.com, and make a secure donation online through the Vanco application. Or you can send us a check at our Flagstaff address, 510 North LaRue Street, Flagstaff, Arizona, 86001, and please write offering in the note. However you donate and however much you donate, we really appreciate your generosity during this time. And finally, when we are together in this building, we are able to hold hands and come together and feel the warmth of the community. And we've been doing that virtually. So I invite you to imagine yourselves in the sanctuary, holding hands with others, feeling the sense that we are indeed Beacon, always connected. And while you do that, I offer these closing words from the poet Roomie. Come take a pickaxe and break apart your stony self. The heart's matrix is glutted with rubies. Springs of laughter are buried in your breast. Unstop the wine jar. Batter down the door to the treasury of your existence. The water in your jug is brackish and low. Smash the jug and come to the river. Blessed be, blessed we, stay safe and well. Amen.